Welcome to today's episode of the Deep Dive Credit Podcast, presented by Elite Credit Solutions. We are your trusted partner in affordable credit repair, proudly based in Tampa, Florida, and dedicated to serving clients across the entire United States. Join us as we explore the intricacies of credit management, share expert insights, and empower you with the knowledge you need to achieve your financial goals. Get ready for an enlightening journey into the world of credit. Let's dive in.
All right, so today we are taking a deep dive into caller ID spoofing. And I bet a lot of you out there listening are here because you are tired of getting those scam calls from people pretending to be someone else.
Yeah, definitely a big issue these days.
So let's take a look at caller ID spoofing.
Yeah.
We've got some great sources today from the FCC, Nobel Biz, First Orion, and let's jump right in.
Okay.
Can you tell everybody out there, just in case they don't know?
Sure.
What is caller ID spoofing?
So caller ID spoofing is basically when a caller deliberately falsifies the information that's transmitted to your caller ID display.
Oh, right.
So it makes it look like someone else is calling you.
Okay, so how does that work?
Yeah, so there's a variety of different ways that they can do this.
Okay.
Sometimes they use like readily available online tools. Other times they might actually hack into phone systems. And there are a lot more sophisticated methods that they can use. But basically what it comes down to is they're masking their true identity.
Right. So, I mean, we all know that there are scammers out there trying to take advantage of people.
Absolutely.
But how are they actually using this caller ID spoofing to their benefit?
Yeah, so they're using it for a bunch of different scams.
Okay.
One that's particularly sneaky is called neighbor spoofing.
Okay.
And this is where the scammer will make the caller ID display a number that looks almost identical to yours, often just a few digits off.
Oh, wow.
So the idea is to trick you into thinking that it's someone from your neighborhood or even someone you know.
And I would imagine that it's probably very effective because people get a call that's almost their same number. They're like, oh, I should probably answer this.
Yeah.
It's like maybe it's my doctor's office or something like that.
Right.
Or a business I frequent or something.
Yeah, you're more likely to pick up the phone if you think you recognize the number.
Right.
And that's exactly what the scammers are banking on.
Right. So they use that split second of hesitation or, you deciding to answer the phone to their advantage.
Exactly. And once they have you on the line, they can launch into all sorts of different scams.
Okay. So give me an example of a scam.
Yeah. So a very common one is they'll impersonate a government agency.
Oh, okay.
Like the IRS or the Social Security Administration. Maybe they'll say there's a warrant out for your arrest.
Oh, wow.
Or that you owe back taxes, and if you don't pay immediately, you're going to be in big trouble.
It's like they prey on people's fears.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of fear tactics involved.
Now, the FCC website that we have as a source says that caller ID spoofing is illegal.
It is, yeah.
So why are people still able to get away with it?
So there are a few reasons why it's difficult to enforce this law.
Okay.
First, a lot of these scammers operate from outside of the United States.
Right. So there's no jurisdiction?
Exactly. It's hard to track them down and prosecute them.
And the internet makes it easy for people to hide their location.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's hard to catch them, basically.
Yeah, and it gets even trickier because not all spoofing is actually illegal.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So there are legal reasons why someone might want to spoof a phone number?
Yeah, there are legitimate uses for it.
Okay.
For example, doctors might use it to protect their personal cell phone numbers when they call patients.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or businesses might use it to display a toll-free number for customer service calls.
Right, that makes sense, yeah.
So it can be used for good or bad.
Okay, so it's kind of this double-edged sword.
Right.
Where it can be used for good and it can be used to scam people.
Absolutely, and that's part of what makes it so difficult to combat.
Right, and just for the average person trying to live their life and not get scammed, it's like, how do we know?
Yeah.
You know?
It's tough. Yeah.
It's tough.
Definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
But the good news is
understanding
how spoofing works and recognizing the tactics that these scammers use can really help you protect yourself.
Okay, so knowledge is power.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get into that. Okay, so we know that some spoofing is legal, some is not. But for the illegal stuff, are there any sort of like red flags that we can look out for to try to help us not get scammed?
Yeah, there are a few things to watch out for.
Okay.
One thing is that scammers often try to impersonate authority figures.
Okay.
Like government agencies or law enforcement.
So like if I get a call that says it's the IRS or the police or something like that,
right,
be wary.
Yeah, exactly. Because they know that people are more likely to take those calls seriously.
Right. And, panic a little bit and maybe not think clearly.
Exactly.
So what should I do if I get a call like that?
The best thing to do is to hang up and call back the agency or organization directly.
Okay.
Using a verified number that you find on their website or a bill statement.
So don't use a number that they give you.
Right, because that could be part of the scam.
Okay, so always verify.
Exactly.
Good advice. I like it.
Yeah, and another thing that you can do is be wary of requests for personal information. A legitimate company or government agency will rarely ask for sensitive details over the phone.
Right. That makes sense.
So if someone's pressuring you for your social security number or bank account details, that's a big red flag.
Definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be very suspicious at that point.
Absolutely.
Now, I know that our first Orion article talked about something called call printing.
Yes.
Can you tell everyone what that is?
Yeah, so call printing is a technology that uses data science to analyze calling patterns and identify potentially fraudulent calls.
So it's like a scam detection system.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Okay. And how does that actually work?
So it looks for anomalies or patterns that might indicate a scam.
Okay.
For example, if a single number is making thousands of calls in a short period of time, that's a pretty good sign that it's not a legitimate call.
That makes sense.
And it can even identify scams that haven't been reported yet.
Oh, wow. So it's proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool.
Now, what if you don't have call printing?
Yeah.
Are there other things that you can do to protect yourself?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that the FCC recommends is signing up for a call blocking service.
Okay.
A lot of phone companies offer these features as part of their plans.
Okay.
They can block known scam numbers or flag suspicious calls as potential spam.
Okay, so those can be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are also third-party apps that offer even more advanced blocking and filtering options.
Okay, so there are definitely things out there to help people out.
Yeah, there are a lot of resources available.
Yeah, and what happens if somebody does actually fall victim to one of these scams?
Well, the first thing is don't panic.
Okay.
It happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's important to act quickly.
Okay.
So if you gave out any financial information, contact your bank or credit card companies right away. Yeah. They can help you put a freeze on your accounts or issue new cards.
Right. And I know that the FCC website also had some advice for people whose number has actually been spoofed.
Right.
Because that happens too.
Yeah, that can be really frustrating.
Yeah, so you get all these angry calls from people you don't even know.
Exactly.
Somebody's using your number.
Yeah, it's like you're getting blamed for something you didn't do.
So what do you do in that case?
So the FCC recommends a few things.
Okay.
First, you can place a message on your voicemail explaining that your number has been spoofed.
Okay.
And you're not actually making these calls.
So you're basically saying, hey, this is not me.
Right. Exactly. Right. And you can also change your voicemail grading to something generic.
Okay.
Like, you've reached your name, please leave a message.
Okay. Yeah, just to make it less convincing.
Exactly. And finally, you should file a complaint with the FCC.
Okay.
They might not be able to catch the specific scammer, but your report can help them track patterns and trends, which is really valuable.
Okay, now I know we talked about all the bad things about caller ID spoofing.
Right.
But I do want to touch back on the fact that there are some legitimate uses for it.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do we draw that line between the ethical uses and the unethical uses?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And it's something that's being debated a lot right now.
Okay.
The Nobel Biz article that we have actually highlights some of the challenges in defining ethical spoofing.
Okay.
For example, some businesses argue that it's okay to use a spoofed number as long as they're transparent about who they are and what they're selling.
So they're not trying to hide their identity.
Exactly. They're just using a different number.
Okay.
For convenience, or maybe to make it easier for customers to call back.
And I can see their point. And I've gotten calls from companies before
Yeah.
where the number is just like completely random. And I'm like, I don't even want to answer this.
Yeah.
So I can see where it could be beneficial.
Yeah, it can definitely improve customer service.
Right.
But it's a slippery slope.
Right. Because then where do you draw that line?
Exactly.
Between just being convenient and being deceptive.
Right. And how do you ensure that businesses are actually being transparent and not using spoofing as a way to trick people?
Right. And, make it seem like they're someone that they're not.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's tricky.
It is. It's a really complex issue.
Yeah. It really is. And it makes you wonder about the future of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, where do we go from here?
That's a tough one.
Will we get stricter laws?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think technology is going to keep playing a huge role.
Right.
Like we might see new ways to spoof that are even easier, but we'll probably also see better ways to catch the scammers.
Right.
It's like a constant back and forth.
Yeah. So it's really just an arms race.
Yeah, pretty much.
So until then, what can our listeners do to protect themselves?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to just stay informed.
Okay.
Keep up with the latest scams.
Yeah.
The FTC website's a great resource.
Right.
And there are organizations like First Orion that are doing a lot of work in this area. So just staying up to date can really help.
Okay, so knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into caller ID spoofing,
Okay.
I want to ask you that thought-provoking question that we brought up earlier.
Okay.
If you could legally spoof your caller ID, what number would you display?
Oh, that's a good one.
And why?
I think I would probably display my own number.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I value transparency.
Okay.
And I think it's important for people to know who's calling them.
Okay, so you wouldn't even use it for, like, fun?
No, not really.
Okay.
I think it's a powerful tool that should be used responsibly.
Right, well, that's a great point to end on, I think.
Yeah.
So that wraps up our deep dive into caller ID spoofing.
We hope you learned some things today.
Yeah.
Stay vigilant, stay informed.
Definitely.
Stay curious.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
That wraps up another insightful episode of the Deep Dive Credit Podcast, brought to you by Elite Credit Solutions, your go-to resource for affordable credit repair across the United States. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope you found the information valuable and empowering. If you're ready to take control of your financial future, don't hesitate to reach out to us at 813-317-6776. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep striving for excellence in your credit journey.